Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Turchnow, and I am the CEO of ARINGO MBA Admissions. And I am here today to talk about the 3 MBA questions. Why MBA, why us, and why now? And so this is our topic for the day. I'll go through a couple of background items, but just to get the chat started off, how many people are here? Give me a shout out. Let me know where you're coming from. Would love to know who's in the room this morning or evening. All right. So while we wait for those to come in, how many people have already marked their calendar for the MBA Spotlight? It is a pretty amazing experience. A lot of opportunities to speak one-on-one with admissions reps. Lots of really exciting things going on for MBA Spotlight. All right, so I think everybody's here. So we'll go ahead and get started. If anybody joins late, we'll make sure we catch them up. All right, so again, my name is Jen T. I am the CEO here at ARINGO. I've been in admissions for almost 10 years and really enjoy helping candidates find their spot in the next step in their life, typically with the top MBA program. So I'm with ARINGO. We've been around for about 20 years, and we help our candidates get into the top schools by doing many different things. And so we can help you as a client or even with a profile evaluation before you get to the client stage, helping with school selection, mapping out your applications between rounds, as well as deciding on the strategy that you want to use for writing your applications, prepping your CV and changing it over to an MBA resume, writing your essays, help prepping your letters of recommendation, and then interview preparation. So we do it all, and we're here to help. You can always find out more about ARINGO at aringo.com. And our statistics do speak for themselves. So you can see we are audited by EY every year. And you can see that we have fantastic statistics of admissions as you compare them to the general admission rate. Just a couple key schools to pull out there. And then we will also have our results published on our website as well. So if you need any of those. Awesome. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a little bit. I'm just going to do a quick overview of MBA programs and the options that you have, and a little bit about how to choose an MBA, because that leads into these 3 questions of, why you want the MBA, why us, why now, and then we'll talk about essay tips. So we're going to help you get through every part of the application that are the major questions for these top MBAs. So first, we'll go through, here are some of the top universities here in the U.S. I'm here in the U.S. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia. So top schools in the U.S. That, you may hear some key terms like HSW, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, M7, T10, T15. These are those schools. And then top universities from Europe, you're going to have a little bit less recognition of these brand names, except for maybe like Oxford and Cambridge, London Business School or INSEAD, or schools that maybe your mom hasn't heard of, but in the business world, they're very big names. And that's really because they focus simply on MBA or business school instead of having a college or a university that focuses on general studies as well. So that's why some of these names are not necessarily household names, but they're definitely big names across the globe when it comes to MBA and top ranking programs. All right, and so really quick to kind of, again, go the difference of US versus European schools. Both are great options. US schools typically tend to be 2 years. And then EU or UK and European schools typically tend to be about 1 year without an actual internship, but still high employment rates afterwards. So the ultimate decision for you is deciding on location. Where do you want to work and live post MBA is going to be the important part of making that decision of how do you choose between a US school and a European school. Beyond that, here are some other factors that you kind of want to consider is, where are you going to be best served for your career goals? And so making sure that that school has the best services to help you with getting into the field that you want to be in or to grow within the field that you're already in. And then again, where do you want to live after you graduate? You want to also look at the ranking of the school and the cost of the program, or the ROI, or the cost opportunity. So, the difference of being in the MBA program for 1 year versus 2 years, taking that time out of the workforce could be really important to consider when deciding which school to attend. And then beyond that, each school has their own specialty or concentrations. And each school will also have recruiters from specific companies. They're going to always be recruiting there and that have strong relationships with the career centers. So that's another great way to kind of make a decision about, oh, I want to go to Tepper because they're always having tech companies recruit there. Or I want to go to an M7 because that guarantees that MBBs will be recruiting there, right? Sometimes you want to look at the different teaching methods that they might have, and then the culture of the school itself. And so that could be, like whether it's more competitive or more collaborative. And then is it a college campus or is it a college located in a major city? And what kind of bonding are you going to do with your classmates? Are you going to get to know all of them or just a small section? And how will those relationships continue to grow beyond your years in the MBA program? So that's definitely something also to consider. So now we're going to jump into the major part of the presentation. How do you answer the question, why MBA? So a lot of the times when I talk to somebody in their initial conversation, they're like, oh, I want to get more skills, or I want to be able to grow, or I want to get a top job. So those are really great answers. But when it comes to an actual MBA and either talking to an admissions representative or writing your essays, you want to be able to tell them a story. They don't want to hear like, oh, I need to get a job, or I want to get a higher paying job. Like those things are somewhat obvious. If you're going to attend a top MBA program, they're going to happen. But, why do you need an MBA? So you want to be able to help, I call it connect the dots, but you want to help show them how your past relates to what you want to do in the future and your short-term and your long-term goals. And so oftentimes when I talk to somebody and I say, like, oh, what's your short-term and your long-term goals? They're like, well, to get an MBA and then to get a job. And I'm like, we need to dive deeper and kind of talk about those a little bit more. So let's say that you have a background and you've been working in the technology area and you've had, probably 5 or 6 years of increased, you've continued to grow, like as maybe like an admin or analyst too. And now you're saying, I've had this growth and I've really learned the field, but now I want to take a step into leadership and become a manager. And then, so that's kind of your short-term goal is I want to utilize my experience in the tech field to move into the management role. And I need the MBA to help me do this. And so you're going to get the skills and the ability to work across different departments in the foundation courses in an MBA. So that's kind of how we want to talk about like, why MBA? So I need to build on the growth that I've already had to reach my short-term goal. And then eventually I want to continue to climb the ladder and move up to the C-suite. And then you also can talk about, your long-term goals. And then I think like with everything that's going on in the economy globally, and, if we're a little bit more micro talking about the US, there's a lot of change going on, some layoffs in the tech field. You can see that consulting is having some changes, like Bain asking people to delay their start. So with everything going on, I say that one of the bigger things is to be able to articulate your flexibility and your multiple options for your short-term and your long-term goals, so that the school says, this person understands what's going on. They know what our specialty is, and they know that they might not get hired by Google immediately after graduating, but they would be happy with some of our other top recruiters like IBM, HP, or even moving into like Amazon movies, or I have a client who is working with Paramount Plus, and they're exploding. He's like, we're hiring every day. So, there's a lot of different ways to use technology and to talk about different roles that you could be in or different fields. So being able to show that diversity will definitely help them with saying, yeah, we're ready. This person is a great fit for us. They know what they're doing, and they're ready and able to be adaptable to what happens when they graduate, technically in 3 years from application. So the other thing that you want to do, again, like I said, is kind of connect the dots for the committee. So it's not always obvious to them. So you want to make sure that you tell that story so that they can say like, oh, okay, awesome. So they grew up in a family business that was, focused on technology, and that's where their interest came from. And this is why they're passionate about technology, and they want to grow this, and then eventually potentially join the family business and be able to grow the enterprise on an international level, something like that. Okay, so I think we have a question from Pooja. With 10 years of work experience from India and having a non-technical background, what have I considered for an overrepresented application pool? So there's a couple of caveats to that profile review. So 10 years is a bit high for a traditional full-time MBA program, especially when we're talking in the US. 10 years of work experience is on the border for the European UK schools. There are some that would be open to 10 years of work experience, but what happens is they're starting to say either one, you're overqualified for a traditional MBA program and it'll be hard to find the right spot for you, or their recruiters are going to be looking for a younger demographic. And it's not necessarily about you. It's about what they specifically experience on a typical basis. So employers like MBB or consulting firms, they're often going to have new grads working 90 plus hours a week, traveling at a high frequency. When we talk about candidates with 10 years of work experience plus an MBA, then we're talking about people who are moving into that family age. And so they're starting to like worry about family planning, and they won't want to travel as much, and they're not ready to put in that many hours. A lot of the times, some people with an MBA and 10 years of experience say, I've paid my dues, and now like I want to be like more on the management side, so I don't necessarily have to work 90 hours. And so again, it's not necessarily about you specifically. It's about what experience that they've had in the past. You can absolutely still apply to MBA programs, talk about your readiness for the program, and maybe even the awareness of, I'm ready to put in those 90 hours. And I know that they're never going to ask you if you're single or married or anything like that, but that's just, sadly, it's an overgeneralization that they're going to make. So just, kind of understand that. So and I might be making a slight assumption that maybe you come from India, and with India, it is an applicant pool where there are so many people applying with similar profiles. What is important is to differentiate yourself from the other candidates in the pool. And you could also look at more senior MBA programs like the Foster Global EMBA program, the USC IBEAR program, or maybe even the Stanford MSX program. So I know we're diving a little bit deep and getting off the topic here. So I'm happy to talk offline or at the end when we have Q&A about more about these profiles. AJ, you are into sales, partnerships, and software industry, 5 years of experience, would like to transition to strategy consulting, MBA essays, right? So this is exactly what we're talking about right now, is you're building this why. So if you're into sales and partnerships, you want to talk about this experience and your history and your knowledge. And so maybe we even make it more niche to say, like, I've been working in sales and partnerships within the biotech industry, and I'm really excited to move into the consulting world to be able to not only provide my niche expertise, but also gain more experience in a variety of global companies or global firms, whatever it might be. And I need the MBA to be able to make this jump. So that's how we would talk about that. Tiny question, not related. Any idea as to how long each MBA spotlight? Rashawn, I think that Abhijit is on, and he could probably answer your question about the MBA spotlight events. So Dada, chartered accountant with around 2 years of work experience. And so chartered accountant is very exciting, right? Like, because one, when an MBA admissions committee looks at your profile, they know that you have extensive experience because you had to do your apprenticeship, plus now you're working, plus you had to pass a very rigorous exam. And it does give you a lot of leeway as far as being a chartered accountant and be able to work across multiple countries. So that definitely adds to your profile, and being able to say, I've had this niche experience working as a chartered accountant, and now I want to move into, I didn't see what you want to do next, but, saying that you want to, move into finance, use this experience to make this leap into finance with your financial background, that the MBA is going to give you the ability to reach this goal of moving into a finance role. Okay. Boana, 10 years of experience from IT, technical experience. So I can't say necessarily, Juana, if it's going to make it tough for you to get into a full-time MBA. The question is which MBA programs are you going to be applying to, right? So, if we can match it to the specific MBA programs, then it could be a little bit easier. I would say that maybe like Cornell or Tepper could be a good fit, not knowing anything else about your profile. If you're going for or even doing like a tech MBA at Cornell Tech or NYU Tech, or you could also do the tech MBA with Columbia, or I'm sorry, not Columbia, with Kellogg, the MBA and IESC also has an MBA, tech MBA as well. So there's about, I think, 4 or 5 of them across the globe. But essentially, a tech MBA is usually 1 year, and it gives you an expedited MBA into the tech world so that you can kind of launch into there. And they almost all have 100% employment. So it's definitely an option when we're looking at 10 years of work experience and being in the tech world. Dada, you're looking for managerial roles or entrepreneurship, and to go with the chartered accountant. Sorry, everything to scroll through here. Okay, so managerial roles and entrepreneurship. Again, I think that and I know that we get a little sidetracked in these a little bit, but again, always happy to talk offline with anyone about these specifically. But, as far as wanting to move into managerial roles, you can talk about your 2 years of experience, we'll say, right? Like your time, because getting your chartered accountant plus your 2 years of experience at, I'm assuming, a firm, and that you want to take this into the next level and be able to, lead teams and take responsibility. And I think that the MBA is going to offer you the leadership exposure and the ability to work across the different departments to be able to help your team execute and exceed on their goals. So, that's a short way of kind of talking about why you need an MBA. John, how competitive are European MBAs in the US job market? So this goes back to the where, right? So if you really want to work in the US, I highly recommend getting an MBA in the US. It's where your network is going to be. An exception to that might be INSEAD, because I believe that most INSEAD grads will go everywhere. But beyond that, like, I think that you will have plenty European graduates that do go abroad, but it's going to be at a smaller rate than a US MBA, and there's few US MBA grads that go to Europe. So you do have a little bit of a smaller market when we talk about the alumni network that you're wanting to utilize. As far as brand names, they should still carry. Again, like LBS, a lot of folks in the business world are going to know about LBS, Cambridge, Oxford, INSEAD for the most part as well. But then, like when we start to move into IESE, IE, Bocconi, they might have a little less of like a brand name in the US. So hopefully that helped answer that question. Juana, you're looking for a GMAT waiver. I would look at, again, like Foster's Global EMBA program. It's in Seattle. They do offer a GMAT waiver because it's typically for candidates with more work experience, and they're fantastic. They'll definitely help you with launching your career, giving that leadership experience. And if you're looking to move into the tech world, there's plenty of folks or plenty of companies in their backyard that you can gain jobs with. Okay, so Pooja, asking about the one-year MBAs. Yes, one-year MBAs typically, especially in the US. So we're looking again at tech MBAs if you have a tech background, but then with one-year MBAs, you can look at Kellogg, Emory, and there are a few more like the USC iBear that could also give you the option for a one-year MBA. How competitive is it? We've already done that one. So, Shivang, you have a question about STEM MS and engineering help with establishing academic readiness. Yes. So we're going to talk about academic readiness in the next slide. AJ, and it's okay that you don't have managerial experience. It will definitely be able to gain that leadership experience, and talk about how the MBA will help you with that. And then, John, I do believe that I think I did answer this. So, European schools are going to be competitive, but when we talk about in the job market in the US, you are going to be looking at potential, depending on the name, they may not know the name. INSEAD, likely if you're applying for if you're applying to a global firm, likely they'll know INSEAD, they'll know LBS, Oxford, Cambridge, but then maybe HEC Paris gets on the kind of maybe like less known, IESE, IE, and Bocconi. They're maybe a little less known, but nonetheless, they are a top-ranked MBA program that it's easy for them to look into. And I do think that having the experience abroad in the European market can be an advantage depending on where you decide to work in the company, in the firm, and everything that could correlate with that. Okay, so we're going to move on from why MBA. So the next question that any school is going to have is, why us? And this is where I say, like, you've got to show them that you fit with them. And really, this all comes from doing your research. So I highly recommend for candidates to, one, look at the clubs and activities on campus and say, like, okay, awesome, I'm really into sustainability, and there is a net impact group that's going to help me feel like I'm really connected and making a difference. And usually, like, net impact will have clients that they work with or do case competitions to applying sustainability standards across different functions and different verticals, so that you have that application going in and you don't necessarily have to have a concentration in sustainability. Or if you have like a second concentration in sustainability, then, that kind of helps. But, you could be a tech professional that's really interested in sustainability and how to, kind of integrate that and say, one thing that I really like about this school is that there is, a heavy emphasis on sustainability, or, they have the net impact group that's, most competitive or done X, Y, and Z. You could also talk to candidates who have either graduated or are participating in the program and find out from them about, which class or professor has been most impactful. And so, specifically if it's in your field, you want to say, like, if it's like leadership and navigating difficult conversations, you can say, I can't wait to take the class from Benjamin Franklin and learn about difficult conversations with this class. The other thing that you could do is, like supply chain, like, again, like anything that's niche helps them with saying, wow, this candidate has done their research. They know what our school is about and they want to be a part of it. Like when we move into culture, so MIT has every Friday night they kind of do, or Thursday or Friday night, so once a week, they have a different social gathering and a different candidate will show off their talent. And that's a really cool thing. And to, again, embrace everybody's individuality and learn something new, but like in a social setting, that's something that's really exciting. So like taking those moments in and being able to say, I really can't wait to be to be a Sloaney and, share my talent with the group. And so like, whether that's cooking or dancing or singing or yodeling or whatever it might be, like being able to kind of share, hey, I want to be a part of this specific thing. And then the other part is going to be the career outcomes. So if you look at the school's, what we call career report, then you can look at that and see what employers are coming to campus on a regular basis. They'll usually highlight the employers with the most amount of grads employed. Plus, you can look at the different fields, verticals, functions that they go in. Some of them even dive deeper into the specific titles that they get. So it just depends on the specific school and how they do their career report. But it's easy to put that into the search bar and put like Wharton career report, and then that'll come up and you can look and see, where people are going and what percentage are going into something that makes sense to you. But being able to share, hey, I know that I want to go into this field and that there's multiple companies that recruit for positions that I'm interested in post-grad. Awesome. Okay, so quickly, I'm going to go through and see what new questions we have. How do top MBA programs evaluate an application, work experience, and grad exam test? Okay, so John, this is like something that we wish we all had a magical formula for. But essentially, every school will be weighing each part of your application to see if you're the right fit. Admissions committees kind of like term it as crafting a class. And so they feel like they want to have the ability to make a diverse class of candidates from every different sector, from different international experiences and backgrounds, so that you can all learn from each other when you're in the classroom. Because you'll go through the business foundations courses, and if they have everybody comes from finance, then nobody's going to have any experience in supply chain to talk about how things function and work in the supply chain background. And that's a mismatch, because yes, you should be learning from your professors, but you also should be learning from each other, and you should be gaining contacts in different industries across the gamma. So they're crafting a class. So they will say, okay, so maybe somebody has really high academics, but low work experience, or too much work experience, or too general work experience. And so they're trying to say, like, okay, so is it more important to have higher GMAT scores or to have somebody with more specific or niche work experience? And one of the determining factors is how you tell the story of why you fit for them and why it's important for you to be at that school and part of their community. This is everything we're talking about today. So doing that research and being able to build the story for them, they'll say, oh, He has a bit more general work experience, but when we look at what he's done for career or like for extracurricular activities and what he wants to do as far as his goals, I think that he's going to be fantastic at contributing to the classroom. So again, we want to build that story. And if it's such a mismatch between what the school is looking for and what you have to offer, then maybe it's time to change your school list as well. All right. So Felix, 13 years of work experience. You want to do a 2-year MBA, not executive. Do you have a chance of entering top programs in the US? 13 years of work experience is a bit high for a US MBA program. They're typically going to have an average age of around 25 to 27. I'm going to assume you're a bit higher than that. So trying to get into a 2-year MBA program is going to be tough. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It might depend on your specific experience and background, and happy to talk about that offline. But 13 years is a bit much for the 2-year programs. So you want to look into potentially the 1-year programs. They're going to be a better fit and give you better yield as far as admissions. And also with the job match, again, like we're not taking such a deep dive into your specific profile, but when we talk about 13 years and employment post MBA, you're not likely going to land in MBB because they're, again, like looking at that much younger, under 30 kind of profile. So you're going to be looking at, like, do you want to go into product management, moving up in the tech world, finance, those types of things? That's where your sweet spot is going to be if you have that many years of work experience plus an MBA. They want to make sure that there's not a mismatch between where you've been and where you want to go, and that they equal out so you're not making less money with a less title, because MBAs are ranked on return on investment. And if it takes a really long time for you to get back up to where you were previous to an MBA, then, you know, that becomes a problem for them statistically. All right, Rashawn. Would I be considered overrepresented if my job specifically entails investment strategy and I'm part of a fund management? So I wouldn't necessarily say that you're overrepresented. Again, not knowing demographics, I would say that coming from finance, VC, PE, that world, there is, you know, more people coming from that to an MBA program because they need it to make to the next level in their career and moved either from to the buy side or to the other side, or be able to move, you know, to VC or the other side of finance. So I wouldn't say it's overrepresented at this point. 6 years of work experience should be fine. I think it, again, is all in how you're articulating your goals and your next steps to how you would be a good fit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide, which is the important part. Why now? So this is the third piece of the puzzle. So we've already talked about why MBA, why us, and why now. So this is where we need to really show them that you're ready for the program with your career progression, that academically you're there. So that could be either through your GPA and academics in college, and that would also be matched by your GMAT or GRE score or executive assessment. There are some 2-year programs that do take the executive assessment. And then beyond that, like if there's a waiver, or if you've taken any additional coursework, like the CFA, those are really great attributes to have. Not saying that anybody needs to go out and get the CFA to be eligible for an MBA, because that is intense. And, you know, again, we want to tell them why now is the right time for the MBA. And so it's this transition time period. I need the MBA to get to this spot. And if you've had 10 plus years of work experience, that's a little bit harder to navigate, but you can talk about the growth that you've had. And even if your career journey has been a little disjointed, so like, let's say that, and again, we'll go back to tech, like, so saying that I was a network administrator and I really enjoyed that. Then I moved over to being And working, I enjoyed, being a network administrator and working between the different teams to help them achieve their technical or solve their technical problems, right? And then I moved into being an analyst, and that was more of like a siloed role where I was being able to look and create reports, but not necessarily working with different teams. And I really missed the aspect of working with others. So then I moved back into a role where, now I'm managing processes and teams. And so I took this journey, but this is how I got where I am. So we want to craft a story for the committee to be able to say, I got it. And it took a little bit longer to get there, but I understand and why the MBA is the right place for you now. And so that's kind of how you want to answer that question and give them the impetus of, this is my moment. For those who have less years of work experience, which it doesn't seem like we have many people, but a lot of times I have people with maybe 2 years of work experience that are looking to apply to an MBA. And it's like a little bit on the lower scale, but still acceptable. And so this is where I would talk about, with 2 years of work experience, you can say, I've learned the basics and I've exceeded what I can do in this role. And now I need an MBA to move into the managerial side. And getting this MBA will not only give me the foundation of business to work across different teams and different silos, but be able to move into a management role or consulting role or whatever it might be with less years of work experience. All right. So that's why now. And then again, I think that I've talked a lot about making this story, but it's really important as far as how you craft your application and show a committee why you're the right fit for their program, is really tying everything together and connecting the dots for the committee of, I need to go to Tepper because they're one of the best MBA programs for the technology sector, between the coursework with XYZ professor and the recruitment from, I would say thing, but that's not even a thing anymore, but from top technology companies. I want to be able to move into this specific role. And I know that this school is going to be able to help me get there because I spoke to X, Y, and Z. We want to kind of reinforce that with anything that you've done as far as research. When I talk to, we've already talked to Ben Franklin, so we'll talk to Aretha Franklin. So when I talked to Aretha, she said that this was the right place for somebody who wanted to grow their tech career, something like that. Yeah. So beyond that, we want to make sure that we're answering the question that the committee is looking for. They do not want to see fluff. So if you are a person who says, ooh, ChatGPT or AI, help me write my MBA application, don't do it. Because all AI does is create fluff. They're looking for substance. Typically, when we're working with a client writing their essays, it's going to take them 3 to 5 revisions to really start getting succinct essays that are going to actually start telling the committee who they are and what they want to do in the right way, with support of kind of historical background and implementing or integrating those experiences, interviews, whatever it might be, for the committee to really say, oh, this is a substantial essay that's really giving us quality information about this candidate, not necessarily, I helped save the world and I did it all by myself and now I need an MBA. Because it's easy to write a lot of fluff, but we need to get them some hard facts, give them some statistics for them to see what you have accomplished and be able to translate that into how you're going to be successful in their MBA program. Word limits. So for the most part, MBA programs are pretty strict about their word limits. So if you go over by 1 or 2 words, maybe 5 would be the max that I would do. but I wouldn't go any further than that. Don't write another additional 30, 50, 100 words, because they'll cut it off. And they won't show it to the reader. So be advised to follow that. Promote your candidacy, right? Like, so be confident. The MBA application process can be very daunting, and it can make you second guess yourself to decide if you are going to, you're going through this process, and there's a lot of self-doubt that can happen. And then from there, you want to be able to say, I am good enough. I am really a strong MBA candidate. And if you need anybody to help you and be your cheerleader, I'm definitely here to do that. But it's hard, right? So you need to be confident in this process, and know that what you've done and what you've accomplished is definitely valuable. So again, we want to have ways to implement and show the research you've done across the gamut between talking to people, attending events, webinars, sitting in a class. You do need to do this research. It is going to be invaluable to your essays and your application. Yes. So how you want to contribute to the community. So this is also a part of like being able to show the committee that you know what their community is about. And like we talk about, like Cornell is a very tight-knit community. In fact, you can actually have endorsements from current students for the program. And so by being able to show, hey, I know that there's this club or activity that I'm really interested in, and being a part of that, and living in Ithaca, and being part of a college campus or college town, I'm really excited about this. That helps the committee say like, oh, they get it. They understand us. And then also showing them your career trajectory, obviously, like where you want to go, sharing short-term and long-term goals, and being specific and giving context. So a little bit of advice. Okay, so that concludes my presentation of why now, why MBA and why us. There are some questions coming in. Feel free at this point. Now it's open Q&A. So please send those in. Okay, so Shaving, rephrasing my question a tad bit. Just having to help establishing quantitative readiness. Okay. Okay, so good question about quantitative readiness for the MBA program and academic readiness. So yes, a STEM degree, a STEM background is going to give them the ability to say, okay, on a daily basis, this candidate is working within, really detailed numbers or high level science, and that will definitely give you credibility for your academic readiness. So how does that weigh in with GPA? So a couple of different things about a GPA. So when you come from an international background, so, like if you're applying to a US school or a European school and you are not from that country, they kind of have like a little bit of like an asterisk next to your GPA, because they know that it's not 100% equivalent to what their school system is going to give. So all of these MBA programs know that a class topper in India is likely not going to be getting a 10 out of 10 CGPA. They're knowing that like a class topper might get like a 9.2 or 9.3 maybe. So also phrasing that for them, and showing them that, while you might have had an 8.9 out of 10, that you were in the top 10 or 15% of your class is really important, because, the US standards were like looking at 3 out of 4. Like if you look at a 3.0 GPA out of 4, then, that's a B. But, an 8.9 out of 10 doesn't necessarily equate, 1, on the same scale, but 2, it doesn't equate to, being an average student. So that's important too. So each school has their own calculations. So one tedious part of an MBA application is to put in all the courses you've had and the grades you've had and upload those transcripts. So even though you're uploading them, you also have to input them. Then once they get over to the graduate college will accept it and route it over to the MBA program. The MBA program is going to have their own internal person who is going to create kind of like I'll call it a score sheet, right? So it'll have your translated GPA. So they're all going to do their own GPA translations. So it doesn't matter if you fill out the actual application and round up to the best of your ability of like what your equivalent would be as far as like a 4.0. So, try your best. I wouldn't put nothing and I wouldn't put 4.0 unless you feel like you are at that scale. But with that in mind, every school has their own department that will be doing these calculations, because an MBA admissions team really is trying to, create the weights and balances so that everybody is evaluated on a fair scale. And so they will create their own GPA systems and rankings. They'll put in your GMAT score, which is standardized, along with GRE scores and executive assessments. So they have that standard comparison. Then they'll look at the competitiveness or the rigor of your program. So an MS in engineering versus a bachelor's in communications, I would say, is a bit harder. So they give you a bit more of a higher score for that as well. So it's very intricate and very specialized for each individual school, and a bit of its own science and magic, I would say. But having the MS in engineering will definitely be helpful. Okay. Rashawn, Indian male IT is yes. It's always considered overrepresented technically, just because there are so many people applying, like thousands of people applying with a similar background. The important part, again, is to really illustrate your intricacies, the differences about who you are and what you've done and what you've accomplished compared to somebody else. And it's easier to focus on you versus what everybody, like the more generalized profile. You want to say, this is how I've made a difference or how I've made a contribution. And that could be not only professionally, but also, extracurriculars, volunteering, any kind of professional organizations you've been part of, as well as, say, I think that a lot of our Indian candidates play down the fact that maybe they came from a family business or that their family ran a business while they were younger and they participated, whether that's like just being in the shop, running the cash register, sweeping the floors, whatever it might be. It's still an important part to show who you are and how you learned, how you learned to be who you are and how it shaped you. Aditya, hold on one second. Any tips for applicants from a government civil service background? Yeah, so one, the exam. I know that the civil service exam is really intense. And so if you have a gap in your resume from the time that you spent studying for the exam, you want to talk about that in the additional essay to let them know that, it's a very, Abhijit, it's so sweet. Please like our video and share it. So please give us some likes. And I'll go back to Aditya. So for government and civil service, you definitely have a unique angle, and you want to be able to leverage that in your story of like what you want to do next. I don't know what your short-term and your long-term goals are, but you definitely have a different perspective of working between a government officials or offices, civil service versus business to business. You could be working, government to public or government to different business entities, whatever it might be. So you want to definitely make sure that you're showing the different audiences that you've worked across, because you're, again, going to bring that back to the MBA cohort and give them these insights. And that's what's special about you and why you need to be part of the cohort at any specific school. Like let's say Wharton. Wharton is, infamously known for finance, but if they don't know how government works and how it relates to finance and regulation and such, then, they're missing out. And so that's where you're going to talk about your niche specific sector and how you contributed to what you've already accomplished and how you want to take that forward. So if you want to take your government expertise and move into regulation or move into a specific field to be able to start to implement it, then awesome. You want to share that in your application and your essays. All right. So I feel like I've talked a lot. So let's see if there's any other questions. I'm going to take this moment to have another sip of water, but you guys ask questions, and please like our video and share it after we're done. Anything else that you guys have questions about? So I will say this, my email address is here. I am always happy to do profile evaluations, conversations, about anything that you might have here. Just email me. I will see if I can. Abhijit, I don't know if you have my link for my calendar, but I'm going to grab it real quick and have him put it in the comments, or maybe I can do that. But we do GMAT Club profile evaluations, and you guys can always. So Abhijit, I'm going to send that to you if you can post it in the chat, because I don't think I can. But I'm always happy to chat. So schedule a time via my link that Abhijit just posted for me. Happy to chat offline about any questions you might have. I'm here to help. Adiga, you have another question, please ask. Okay, so thanks for the insight. Wanted to know if you could help me with including an international experience I had in Germany doing research back in 2015. So you may be able to include it in your resume. So anytime you have any international experience, you do want to include it on your resume. Those things pop out to MBA committees. And even if it's, being able to talk about working with a team located in another country, even though you might not have traveled there, you can say like work with a multinational team from Taiwan, US, and Germany on a daily basis to solve IT ticket issues or whatever it might be. You want to put those countries in there because it pops out to the committee. So if you had research back in 2015, maybe that was potentially part of your academic background. So that could be a bullet point under your university. Or it's also an opportunity to use if you had a learning experience, an international conflict. That sounds like a little bit too broad. But if you had to navigate a conflict with different personalities or nationalities or like cultural differences, then that's a great essay response. It's also easy to kind of say that, from my experience in, doing research in Germany, I always knew that I wanted to study abroad for my MBA. And that's when I started looking at schools. And when, Darden stood out to me as one of the best schools as an international student to study at because of their core business, blah, 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 and their international network, and right? So you can always incorporate it in just one small part of a sentence, right? It doesn't have to be in your face, but whoever's reading your application will, when they see another country, it'll be a ding, right? Like the ding, ding, not a bad ding. And they'll highlight it and say, okay, so experience in Germany. And the reason that they want to see this international experience is because cohorts are international and they want candidates who have already navigated working across different cultures and be able to do that easily in the MBA program, because they're going to assign groups at random for your case studies or project groups. And there's 5 of you in the team. No leader is assigned. You guys have to navigate the leadership experience to be able to decide who's going to take the lead, who's going to do what. And if you have experience navigating cultural differences, you're going to have better success or a more open mind. So that's why I would include it in your resume or your essay. It would be really grateful if you could communicate over email. I do need some tips on me. Yep, perfect. Aditya, email me after I get off from this webinar. I have a couple of calls, but we'll be able to email you immediately after that, and we can kind of set up a time to chat as well. Any other questions anybody has today? We'll wait just a few more minutes for any questions, and then Abhijit will package this up and share it on YouTube. Please share with your friends. Again, I'm with the GMAT Club today, but I am also with ARINGO MBA Admissions Consulting, and we do help hundreds of candidates get into top MBA programs every year, and it's kind of my specialty. I love to be your cheerleader in the background while you work with a consultant to really refine your application. And then also MBA Spotlight is coming up. So make sure that you join GMAT Club, and we are super excited to see you there, as well as top MBA programs. It's really a great opportunity to kind of tick the box that you attended this, because all MBA programs are using some sort of CRM tracking system. So when you register for the MBA program or the MBA Spotlight, those registrations go specifically to each school that you registered for a session. And then that school has your email address to add to their CRM. And then now they have a record of you attending an event. And then when you say, I've always wanted to go to Booth, they'll say, oh, you attended our event back in May. You've done your research. And then that also puts you hopefully in their communication loop as far as getting emails and insights from them. So it's super exciting. Okay, so Abhijit, I think that we're done for today, but super excited to speak to you guys in the future. If you have questions, please email me or sign up with the link for my calendar, and then we can go from there.